through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish Prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Hi folks, welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. Been a week since we had a wee chat. Boy, oh boy, has it been happening, eh? Plenty happening. In fact, plenty happening in the last hours or so. So we've got a fully packed show for you, lots to talk about. Lots of controversial stuff, I think would be the best way of putting it. But first, let me get the team out here to help me. I've got my old faithfuls there over in North Dakota. And St. Paddy's Day as well. St. Paddy's Day, here he is. Here he is with his leprechaun. Phil, my dear friend, how are you?
Totally sound, man. Totally sound. The Americans here are wonderful, wonderful people, but they are absolutely mad for St. Patrick's Day. They want to see the stuff that's about the office. This wee guy, wee Sean, it's mental. They even went to a medical checkup just to get some bloods done. And there's a Christmas tree covered in shamrocks and leprechauns. And my mate from Ireland, if he sees another leprechaun and ginger-headed wee guy like this, he's going to throw one. He's going to hit somebody.
Well, I'm in Poland, and there's absolutely nothing here. I've got to tell you, in Poland, nothing, absolutely nothing. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But here we are. But we've also there got I don't know where our Yvonne is today. Last week she was in London. Are you back in the ocean? Still in London?
Back in God's country now, and I'm
wearing London.
No, I'm back from London.
No, it's saying that in your wee thing there, Yvonne Ridley, London. That's what it's saying.
Oh, well, that's what I've been advised by my PR advisor from the SNP. So
you're not resigned.
I'm back, and I'm wearing my Votes for Women banner because I want people to remember that there are some great female politicians out there. They're just not hanging around Holyrood at the moment.
No, they're hanging about Prism.
It's been one hell of a week. And you said last week that a week was a long time in politics. Gosh, it's changing by the hour. And,
absolutely. I'm sure we'll discuss it.
Yeah, I'm sure that we will. And I thought that Phil would have a more angry look than.
Oh wait! First question's a belter. That'll get him going. That'll get him. Trust me.
Well, we can rely on you to stir the pot, Roddy.
Absolutely. I'll fire. I'll give them the ammunition. They can fire you lot fire the cannons. And of course we've got our Eva up there in Clickmanager. Eva, how are you?
Hi, Roddy. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Behind me on my wall, I've got the Irish Proclamation on one side and the Declaration of Arbroath on the other. And I'm really looking forward to a Scottish proclamation sometime soon. And I think the events of this week will, in fact, expedite Scottish independence.
I think you're right. I think you might be right. But one thing, last week we had two SNP stalwarts on here. Because on here, we're trying to get unity. We're trying to bring everyone together because it's the only way that we're going to make it happen. And with that in mind, I'm delighted to welcome the leader of the ISP, Colette Walker.
Hi, Roddy.
Hi, Colette, my dear friend. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm good.
Good. How's things in good old Eastwood?
Very quiet. I think I'm too busy doing other things. I don't know what's happening outside, really. I'm too engrossed in what's happening within the political sphere that we're in at the present moment, so I really don't know what's happening locally.
Well, you can't blink because it's happening that quick. I mean, we could be out of date before this goes out at noon on Sunday. You never know.
I know.
It's happening that much. And also another one they were joining us, it's part of the unity. It's the whole Yes movement we need. And I've got with us Neil Mackay, a member of the AUOB committee. Neil, my friend, how are you? Long time no see. You're looking younger.
That's what happens. I just get younger as I get older. That's it.
What are you drinking? I need some of that. This is what gin does to you. Too much gin.
I'm doing very well, Roddy, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to an engaging discussion. As you say, it's changing by the hour. So it's very interesting times.
Well, yeah, I've got Techie in here, and there's a wee thing in here, folks, ladies and gentlemen, where it tells you, we can talk to each other. Techie sends me messages. Told him anything else or any more resignations or whatever, let me know. The last time he helped me, he told me that Elvis Presley was in the army. He's not very good. But which is what you hear, Neil, before we get started, because unity is something I'm saying here that we're trying to promote and push. You've got a big march coming up on the 6th of May. Techie, maybe you could put up that wee advert for us. We're hoping to get back to the big numbers again, yes?
Oh yeah, this is the opportunity for that for a number of reasons. I mean, it's on the same day as the coronation. As we've put up, because I need to kind of get in here at the start that in one hand I'm representing all under one banner certain points, but obviously I'll come to my own personal opinion about things on different points. But while we're on all under one banner now, for sure we want massive numbers at this. This is the chance really to show the unity in action and the strength of demand. It's the only alternative event on that day. And it's going to be fantastic. We've got the three SNP leadership candidates have committed to speaking and marching, which was fantastic. And we're building as broad a platform as possible, with obviously the idea again, everybody there who believes in independence. The bigger the better.
I just wonder if the losers turn up. But then I'm an old cynic. I'm just like that. I'm a cynic. I can't help it. So let's get started, folks, because then again, as I say, I've got one eye on Techie sending me a message to tell me that Prince Charles cancelled the coronation because he's wanting to go to the All Under One Banner March in Glasgow. You never know. You never know. But where better to start? So we must start at the absolute debacle that's going on with this SNP leadership. I mean, it's, as I put in my blog, one of my blogs this week, it's like a Brian Ricks farce, some of the things that are going on.
Yeah, it's a fiasco. It really is. It's where do you start? All of the errors, all of the problems. I mean, I know we were talking earlier about the numbers. The numbers have been one of the many issues. I don't want to get too far ahead of the game, because you could talk all day about the shambles that is the administration, the protocol, the great SNP members fiasco. This could be called. If 71,000 is now the revised number, how can they explain that the MI Voice were sent 78,000 names? You were saying, and two of the candidates complained regarding transparency and fairness. Are they justified in that? Yeah, this will remember as the great SNP members fiasco of Nicola's catastrophic reign. That's it. We've seen the stories of 25,000 members emerged from several ordinarily reliable sources. And of course, a membership drop from 125 to 25,000 is catastrophic. Absolutely appalling work by Nicola and her cabal, and a good job, well done by the British globalists and establishment have infiltrated the SNP and blackmailed Nicola. Your legacy, Nicola, is one of abject failure. We're further away from independence. The party's in tatters, and we need people like Lloyd Quinlan, Steve Norris, Andy Brophy, and more of the SNP old guard back to fix this. And it starts with some colonic irrigation. Flush these turds out, I say, and get on with it. Be done with them.
I think some of them might enjoy a bit of colonic irrigation. So let's be bonus before you leave. Yvonne, a point that Phil touched on, we were told early on in the week that they had sent 78,000 down to MI Voice. And then when push came to shove, we're suddenly told it's 72,000. So where's the 6,000 discrepancy? Can we feel confident that we have a fair election?
Well, we can't be sure of anything, because the SNP have finally been confronted with the fact that they're all a bunch of liars. And if Police Scotland are watching now, seal off Jackson's entry and have it sealed off as a scene of a crime, because if the last one out tonight, I just hope they remember to switch off the shredder, the sound of the shredding machine coming from SNP headquarters is disgraceful. And I feel for a great many of the SNP ordinary members who are in tears and turmoil over what is happening at the moment. But there are still those muppets who are saying, oh, it's a big Tory plot. No, it's not. You've been lied to. You've been conned. Nicola has lied to you. Everybody has lied to you. And a big shout out to the two female candidates who've both shown themselves worthy of the title of First Minister, because they've both been quite fearless and quite courageous to get into this viper's nest and blow the whistle. And that has really taken some guts to do, because we've seen what they've done to those who cross them. They've destroyed their careers. They've got rid of them. They've watched them just having breakdowns, and they have done they've destroyed people's lives without mercy. Don't show them any sympathy at all.
It's right at the beginning of the week, Eva, the first thing that came out was that both Michelle Thompson, who's running Kate Forbes' campaign, and Joanna Cherry, who's running Ash's campaign, had to send out an email because the headquarters has sent out implying that you had one vote, it was a first past the post type vote, and they had to correct the membership by saying, no, that's not the case. You've got a single transferable vote. And then later on, we found out that you couldn't, in the single transferable vote, just vote for one candidate or two candidates. If you chose, you had to list all three. The whole thing's farcical.
I think at first I probably thought that was perhaps a genuine error, a mistake. I didn't really think to begin with it was necessarily part of a bigger, rather more controversial picture. But as the week has gone on, and it's been one thing after another, I've found it embarrassing and also very perplexing. And the evidence tends to head and point in one direction only. And that's very unfortunate, not just for the individual candidates or for the party's own reputation, but it's not what we want for Scottish politics. And it's certainly not the taint or the smell that we want around a potential new First Minister. As I've said before, we've all said this many times, Scotland has so very much to be proud of, but we keep getting dragged down by the people who elect us. They've made us a laughingstock so many times in the recent past. They've succeeded in doing it again this very week. So I think that what we need to consider is how the SNP can actually resolve this, not simply to the satisfaction of the candidates, but their members. I tweeted the other day about a relative of mine whose email with the vote arrived Thursday morning, when we had previously been assured that all the votes went out on Monday. So there was speculation to the effect that something was happening overnight on Wednesday when people were demanding to see the numbers, or else, because obviously Ash Regan had said she was going to hold, in effect, a press conference on Thursday at 3:00, had the numbers of members not eligible to vote not been disclosed by then. Somebody did some job overnight on Wednesday night, because you're not telling me it's pure coincidence that on Thursday morning, my relative's email arrives in the inbox that they nominated, which happens to be my email account, with their vote, that if they were eligible to vote, they should have got the previous Monday. My own view was I was surprised that they were eligible to vote, because I've got a letter from the SNP from December last year acknowledging receipt of the cancellation of their direct debit, and no other alternative payment was made. Now, I don't know the SNP constitution nowadays. I don't know who does. But if that relative of mine was still a member, then there's a very dodgy explanation behind the fact that it took from Monday until Thursday for his vote to be issued. I also think there's a huge question to be answered in relation to the numbers of votes that we were told went out, and then the number of members that we were told are eligible to vote. So it looks very much like it's either a guddle or a muddle, or hell mend them if it's a fiddle, because if it's a fiddle, the truth will come out. And from developments today, one would tend to the view that the rats are jumping quickly before they're pushed, and there's a lot more to come before we get to the end of the line. And it's a very, very, very sorry state of affairs for a once proud party.
Guddle or Fiddle. That sounds a great title for a blogger to write a blog about. Oh, I did. And it's there for you folks. Get it, www.barheadboy.com. You can read all about it. Now, Colette, I know you're the leader of another political party, an independence party, and you don't probably want to say too much about another political party and its internal wranglings, but as someone who supports independence, you want to have absolute assurance that everything is above board and that the First Minister we get is the First Minister that has been properly, democratically and honestly elected.
Of course we do. At the end of the day, we want Scotland first and foremost to be governed properly and to actually make Scotland a country that we're proud to be living in, and is a place that's prosperous, and that we live a more equal and prosperous life for everybody. That can't possibly happen, and well, it actually hasn't been happening, but it can't possibly happen with all that's going on at the present moment. And what we have to be wary about, and I would be very, very worried if I was any of the three candidates, thank goodness I'm not, but if I was one of the three candidates, your responsibility when you, never mind First Minister, but if you're leader of a party, every responsibility of the workings of the party is on you, fundamentally on you. So really, if they get elected, when they get elected a week on Monday, if anything else comes out, then it's not only their reputation, it's their career that could actually be gone overnight. This is a really serious matter, not only for the candidates, the party, but for the whole of Scotland and the Parliament, because this could cause a snap general election as well. You know, this isn't the end of the matter. This is only the start of the process here. And how can we believe what's going on when Humza was saying only a few weeks ago that they had 100,000 members? He said that on more than one occasion that they had 100,000. Then you had John Ferguson a few weeks ago saying that about the 30,000 that had left, which then Murray Foot basically said that was absolute and utter nonsense. Well, John Ferguson was actually proven right, but the 6,500, 7,000 discrepancy between the 78 that were set to my voice, what, did they just resign overnight? And as Eva said, if those 78, you know, any of our names, anybody that left the SNP, any of our names could be put on an electronic voting system, because who's governing that? Who's looking after that? So this is really worrying. You know, there's too many ifs and buts for anybody to feel comfortable. And as Yvonne said, you know, I've been saying it for the past week, I do actually feel sorry for the members of the SNP who've paid their subs, who've went out campaigning, who have been loyal to the party, who thought they were going to be making a difference by electing these people into office. It's them that I do feel sorry for, because they're the innocent party here.
It is tragic from our part. I mean, we've all been members of that party. Now, Neil, you're here as an individual, so, you know, and as AUOB, I know you're completely neutral on whatever party it is, but when you're looking at this from the outside in and thinking, this doesn't help the cause when we're shown that we can't even run an internal election. I mean, because it is farcical.
It's a total indictment on how things have been getting managed or mismanaged for years. I mean, it's been evident for years that there's been all sorts of skullduggery going on, and really, really inappropriate behaviour in terms of governing Scotland and leading the main party doing so. And really what we're seeing here is that everything's sort of coming out in the wash. You know, it's assured to happen. It was always going to be happening. It was just a matter of when. And I mean, if you look at, like, we've just heard Murray Foote's just resigned. He should never have been hired. That was an absolute disgrace hiring that man. That was a total smack in the face to everybody that voted yes. And that's just one of so many serious errors that have been taking place. So really, what we're seeing here is the sort of revelations of this. It's unraveling and it's all coming out. During this period, it's going to be difficult. It's principally for those involved who have been mismanaging things, but for the wider population, the people that want independence, it's not good at all. And there is serious doubt over this election. I don't know the ins and outs of it, all the details. Some here know a lot more than me, but it just does not fill you with confidence when it takes a significant cross-party, sort of cross-movement campaign to add pressure for them to do something as basic as release the membership figure. That is just not good. It's not healthy. So I think the only salvation for the SNP is if they elect Ash Regan or Kate Forbes. One of those two have to become the next leader. Humza, I'm sure he's a good guy. I'm not saying he's some villain or something, but he doesn't have a plan. He's just going to repeat the same process that Nicola Sturgeon has been doing, but he's not even going to do it as good as her. And that's basically all that's happening. It's continuity, but it's continuity car crash. That's what's happening. That's what's happening with Humza. With all due respect, the only salvation is that if they get Ash Regan in, who actually does have a plan. And has got this mechanism. It's got the Independence Convention. I mean, she's laid it out perfectly over all the hustings in the last couple of weeks. Kate Forbes is great as well. I do like Kate, but I think Ash is the one to become the next leader. That's their only salvation as a party, and I really, really hope the SNP members choose the right candidate here.
Well, I hope so too. Phil, you've been involved in politics for a long time. You've been involved in commerce and business. Now, when something goes wrong in commerce or whatever, someone has to carry the can. Now, for this, all these things that we've already spoken about, and there's more to talk about, the CEO of the party, surely the buck stops there. He's the man overseeing this election. He's the man that wouldn't let the numbers out, was forced to put out wrong numbers. I mean, there's another number that was going through along. Oh, there's 54,000 members. But MI Voice gets 78,000 in their list, and now we're told there's only 71,000, whatever, 72,000. So it's not just a discrepancy of 6,000. There could be another 20. This is a farce, Phil, and I'm not just shouting for someone's head for the sake of it, because there's lots of things he should be fired for. But for this alone, he should be fired.
Yes, that's again one of the first things we should be doing. If the SNP really wants to regain credibility and take on its place at the head of the independence movement, it really has to a sincere of cleansing clear out. It has to be thorough. It has to be thorough. Now, where do you draw the line here? Because there's that classic dichotomy between those who are caught out between loyalty to the party and fully partaking in what they know to be wrongful. When you're doing something like that, I was only obeying orders, doesn't cut it. It just doesn't cut it. But if you're going along with it and you're not privy to it, but you're just remaining loyal, then you can stay. And the irony here is, those of us who are calling for the clear out, the only ones I want removed are the people who are the fifth columnists, the globalists, the unionists. They're the ones I want out. The ones that have infiltrated. They're the ones that have to go. All of them, to a man, to a woman. And those who have betrayed us in the full knowledge of what they were doing, they must be removed from positions of power. Everybody who's went along with this, I would bust them down. They do it in the army. You carry a rank and then you're busted down to private. Back you go out and prove yourself and earn your stripes again, except do it right this time. So, no, I would get rid of them. Has he got to go? Absolutely. But again, Nicola was just the start of it. And touching on some of the stuff that was discussed earlier, the misinformation on the voting process, the odd mistake in an election raises questions about the competence of those administering it. The flood of irregularities, errors and misalignment with due process and proper protocol screams corruption. That's what it screams. You know, why were the unionist voters allowed on the BBC debate night leadership hustings? You know, it's the digital ballots that we're talking about. You know, if the current manager of SNP were truly focused on independence, they would have learned the lessons from the 2014 Indir where these postal ballots were highly questionable. Remember Ruth Davidson and the counting that went on. Remember when the UK system was critiqued in Europe at that time, and it was pointed out that it was so poor and so easily malleable, a child could easily manipulate it. So why allow this to continue? Or in fact, actually, when you think about it, what we've seen is that the SNP current management have adopted the strategies and tactics of perfidious Albion, and sadly to the same ends. They combat independence rather than champion it, and that's why Peter and all of these shysters need to go.
Here. Well said. But Yvonne, none of us, we've all still got lots of friends in the SNP, and good people who, you know, hearts in the right place, we've campaigned with over decades, some of them. Yep. But there are others, the Johnny-come-latelys, who, when this number, who are just refusing, the cognitive dissonance is unbelievable. When they get caught, you know, they denied the numbers had gone down, and then when the numbers come down, they say, well, it's the cost of living. Oh, it's because Nicola left. I mean, it really is. People need to face the reality. This has been it's like a car crash in slow motion, is it not?
Well, as I say, I described it before as the scene of a crime, and it is. And they're all running. Murray Foot being one of them. Liz Lloyd, Sturgeon's closest aide, she said she's leaving the Scottish government hours after Ash Regan's campaign team raised concerns with the head of the civil service.
But why was she allowed to be in the campaign in the first place, Yvonne?
Well, saying Lloyd's breaching the rules with the leadership race. I wouldn't put this lot in charge of an egg and spoon race at the local infant school. They are incompetent, they're bent, they're corrupt, all of which is defamatory. If you want to sue me, come and sue me. I'll see you in court, and I'll have the mighty Eva Comrie by my side fighting for me. Because, you know...
You into the dock as well, Eva. There you go.
One of the... we mentioned Christine Graham before. I'm genuinely concerned for Christine. She's gone AWOL. She's usually a regular feature in First Minister's questions, but the day before FMQs, she was with some snooty little oik talking about the leadership race and who she was going to campaign for. And of course, you know, Christine Graham is a very passionate woman with a great sense of justice. And she was defending Kate Forbes' magnificent takedown of Hamza Yusuf. And she said, quite rightly, she wasn't criticising the party. She was criticising Hamza Yusuf for being useless at being a transport minister, for being useless at being the justice minister. And as we all, you know, equally useless at being the health minister. In fact, the one thing the quality that he has shown is that he's consistently useless. And as if to emphasize it, he meets a load of Ukrainian women and turns around to them, some probably widows, some have probably lost their fathers and sons and children. And he goes, what I can't understand is where are all the men? You know, you just couldn't make it up. The best thing that his campaign team should have done was put a gag over his mouth. And
well, they should have.
But you know, he just puts his foot straight in his mouth. He can't help it. And Chief Mammy is not going to be there to help him out anymore.
I heard as he walked in the door, he said, "Where's the birds?" Like Frank McAvenny. I don't know if that's true or not. But I'm going to put it out there anyway because I want to, because I like to do that sort of thing.
The one thing about Prism viewers is that they will fill in the blanks. Like the other week, I asked, what on earth went on at the Balmoral Hotel? I now know. I wish I could tell everybody, but I would then probably be arrested for some sort of crime. But no, Police Scotland need to get into Jackson's entry. Gosh, it sounds like a trans invitation, doesn't it? They need to get into Jackson's entry and seal the whole area off as a crime scene.
Yvonne, you're wonderful. This is why we have you here. Eva, as I said to you with Yvonne and Phil, I mean, the fact that Liz Lloyd, who's resigned, good, and Murray Foote resigned, and as Neil said, should never have been given the job in the first place. But the point is that Liz Lloyd and another spad from Westminster was allowed to work in Holmes's campaign. Now, the CEO must have known about that. Yep. He had to approve it. I mean, he couldn't get a civil servant for a start unless our CEO had approved it. Or if she'd arrived at 9 o'clock and he hadn't heard by 10 o'clock and found out at 10 o'clock, she's been out the door at 1 minute past 10. But he let her stay there. So again, it goes back to him allowing corruption, allowing the rules to be broken. And don't tell me that the $5,000, the costs of these people comes within the $5,000.
You see, this is very much what's gone wrong in Scotland in the last few years. There are politicians and people around politicians who think that they can do what they want, when they want, how they want, with impunity. Now, I'm not saying that they've broken the law, and I don't know if any particular rules have been broken. But what the public knows, and everybody here knows, and all journalists, all politicians know, is that there's something going very far wrong in Scotland in terms of perception and respect and role models and confidence. And you need in a democracy, if this is a democracy in Scotland, to have confidence in your institutions. We don't have confidence in the judicial system for reasons that we've touched on before. We have some trouble in relation to Police Scotland, not least because the Chief Constable intimated his resignation after the First Minister intimated hers, and there's a level of concern as to that timing. And those concerns may be entirely ill-founded, but it all looks a bit strange. And when you stack everything up, where you end up getting to is a set of circumstances where there's just a bad smell, whether that's intentional, deliberate, willful, or just pure and utter stupidity and ignorance and a lack of strategic, sensible process thought. So whatever it is, the damage is done just the same. And, particularly in the context of Liz Lloyd, there are circumstances where she would have been perfectly legitimately allowed to assist in Humza Yousaf's campaign. It's not necessarily a breach of the rules for her to do so, but it doesn't look good. It's the same with the person who's employed by the SNP at Westminster, who's just started a job very recently and took a leave of absence, apparently, to work in Humza Yousaf's campaign. Again, that's not necessarily rule-breaking, but it doesn't look good. And it enables conspiracy theories to run riot. And that's the fault of the SNP. It's not the fault of anybody else. It's certainly not the fault of Kate Forbes or Ash Regan or their teams for pointing it out. It's not our fault for pointing it out. It's not Alba's fault. It's the SNP not giving two hoots about the impression that they create. And the impression that's given, rightly or wrongly, is that there's a favoured candidate at whom everything is being thrown. Now, that may be coincidence. Humza Yousaf might, in the eyes of the SNP high Hegians, be the best one for the job for good reasons. It's not my opinion, it's not the opinion of any others, but it is an opinion and it's not a necessarily invalid one. But where there are adminicals of evidence, if we put it like that, particularly today, is we know this morning that Ash Regan and her team spoke to the Permanent Secretary, John Paul Marks, about concerns to do with Liz Lloyd being involved in Humza Yousaf's campaign. They were concerned that this could be a breach of rules. That discussion was taken, and only hours later, Ms. Lloyd's resignation...
13 minutes, I was told.
The resignation was announced. Now, that may be a coincidence, but, you know, I'm a wee bit like Marlon Brando when he was negotiating with the families for Michael Corleone to come back for hiding in Sicily. I'm not a big believer in coincidences. So
no, not am I.
If Michael had gone out to play golf and had been struck by lightning, it's a wee bit in that league. I'm just wondering where the horse's heat's going to turn up. So there's too much has gone on here for it all to be entirely innocent. But whether or not it is, it's a bad episode for the SNP, and it could have been cut off at the pass if accurate information had been provided to all the candidates fairly when it was requested. Now, Roddy, would you mind if I said a little bit about Murray Foot's resignation? Because
only if it's jocular and we can stick the boot in.
Right. Well, what he seems to be saying is that he was given information that he gave to the media team, and the media team disclosed that information, and it's numbers, and it's obviously numbers over a period of time, including last month, and I think also perhaps earlier this month. His resignation note is explosive insofar as his note indicates that that information was false. So that he was, in effect, lying, not deliberately or willfully, but he was passing on information that was not accurate. So the person that gave him that information is accountable to the members, to the candidates, and certainly to the general public. And the sooner that that person puts up and hands in their letter of resignation, the better.
I don't think Peter Murrell will do that. We'll have to fire him. The fact is, I think it believe he was the one that said, "Oh, to say that our numbers are down to 30,000 down is nonsense. It's 30,000 wrong. It's not going down." And of course, it was proved within hours or days that it was. Colette, we've all had a wee chat here, and none of us are happy with, you know, the credibility of this election. Can it be saved? This election, can they turn it around? Is there anything they can do to give us confidence that the result that we hear a week on Friday is going to be a real and a genuine, fair, democratic decision? You're muted. You're muted, Colette. There you go. Oh no, you've muted again.
Is that us now?
You're okay.
Right. Sadly, I really don't think we can, because of, depending on who gets in, there's still going to be questions asked, and sadly for me, I feel that really this has been a very rushed process. So my thoughts is, why has it been a rushed process? One, Nicola's resignation announcement was out of the blue. Nobody knew about it. Why was that? And then the three candidates have had hardly any time to prepare for such a major role. It's not just leader of the party, it is First Minister of Scotland as well. That's a major role to prepare for, to go round and do all the hustings and debates that they've been doing. And then when you see the likes of just before that, I questioned why all of a sudden, like, Ian Blackford was standing down, then Kirsten Oswald stood down, so then there was a new leadership and deputy leader at the First Minister Westminster group. So again, I was questioning, why is that happening just now? What's going on? So there was questions leading up to Nicola, so it was almost like a reshuffle. And then when John Swinney said that he wasn't standing, he was stepping down. As I said earlier on, the person that's leader is responsible for the party. And if they become First Minister, they're responsible for the country. So whatever happens within the party, it's almost as if the people that have been quite high up, like Kirsten Oswald, Ian Blackford, John Spinney and all that, they are now just kind of stepping away from whatever's going to happen. So I really don't feel secure that if Humza gets in, people will be questioning, well, is it a fix so that he got through? If Kate gets in, there'll be other people wondering, how did she get through? She wasn't the favourite, blah, blah, blah. I think it really has been too rushed to be certain that everything is the way it should be.
Neil, an awful lot of, as we mentioned, an awful lot of these resignations are key people, deputy leaders, the trusted chief of staff of the First Minister, Murray Foot, the head of communications, and so on. And they're all resigning. Now, the cynics, of which I am one, are saying this is because actually they're getting out while they can, because things are not going according to plan. Would you say the cynics like me have got a point, or do you think it's just coincidence?
No, I think a cynical view is a correct view here. They do seem to be making moves on the chessboard before move before you're pushed, kind of thing, and you get to leave with with a certain degree of honour, and who knows what sort of perks in their salary and all sorts of things that they're leaving with when they can. And I don't know that's the case, but by the looks of it, like what Eva's saying, to echo what Eva was saying about not knowing, but just looking at it, that's how it appears. And I think that's how it appears to the vast majority of people, whether they support independence or not. Peter Murrell should stand down. He should not be in position. He should, there's just so many discrepancies. I mean, you would have to, you'd have to have a show, Roddy, maybe about 3-4 hours long, and I don't know if we'd all get through every single point to do with this. But it's the future is incredibly uncertain here for the SNP. Personally, I would like the SNP to become the Scottish National Party again, the proper nationalist party of Scotland. Now, I would like to see that happen. If it was true, if it was genuine, that would be fantastic. And I know a lot of the people in other parties and that would actually welcome that as well, because it's all about getting their independence. And so that's what I'd like to see out of this. But really, no matter which candidate gets elected, there's a massive problem. If you go with, if Humza gets elected, and I think maybe it links in with what Colette was saying about the timing being so rushed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is a legal deadline at the Section 35 needs to be challenged procedurally. So I do think this is getting rushed. A big reason is to get the leader in place, and the party machine wants Humza. It's as clear as day. And the mouthpiece of the SNP, or at least the SNP as it stands, the National, they are pumping out propaganda daily about this, as we're all aware of. I mean, you'd have to be blind or just completely stupid to not see it. So they're wanting Humza. It could be that they're wanting to get him in office, and then he can enact that court challenge, and that might link in with the timings of this. But either way, if Kate or Ash win, there's going to be a huge number of the SNP that won't be happy. If Humza win, there's going to be a lot of the SNP members that won't be happy. So no matter who wins this, it's incredibly uncertain what's going to happen. All we can hope is that, as I say, what I hope is that Ash Regan wins it. If not Ash, then Kate. Because then we're actually going to see some genuine movement towards independence, rather than what Humza's putting out there, which is just simply build up support through inspiring people, even though I don't find him inspirational in the slightest, but build up support and somehow that will, knock Westminster over. It's absolute nonsense.
As an old SNP man myself, just an old man that was in the SNP for decades. If I was still in my vote, I'd certainly be giving it to Ash Regan. That's probably put the kiss of death on her. But she's the only one that's got a plan for independence. She's the one who has stood up. She was the one that stood up and sent the letter to Peter Murrell saying, come on, get this sorted, and bring in a third-party adjudicator. Phil, will that happen? And the other one I would like to ask you to answer at the same time is, I wrote a blog last week saying I don't think Holmes has got the numbers. I don't think he'll get the transfers that will get him over the line without winning it in the first pass. I don't see him winning it. But what happens to all this whole payroll who've been behind Holmes? They've all done what they were told by Peter Murrell and the chief mammy, as Yvonne calls them, so they could fight this Section 35. What happens to them if Ash or Kate becomes the leader?
Well, what I trust both, particularly Ash, to do is to behave with a bit of decorum and dignity, which you will not get from Humza. So I would expect and anticipate that Ash would say that role no longer exists. We will reassign you, and you can go back and prove yourself. We shouldn't be promoting people because they're sycophants. We shouldn't be creating positions for people who are kissing the Queen Nicola's loof. You know, it's a disgrace that what's happened. The fact that we've got rid of so many good people, so many stalwarts, so many people who can actually do the job, who have principles, and replaced them with these individuals, these childish people, these children, effectively, and their children's politics, their ideologically possessed nonsense. I mean, it's like, I think quoting Peterson here, it's like you're asking all these young kids that are coming in and to run a political party or to fix some complex social problem. It's like giving a chimpanzee a wrench and get them to fix an attack helicopter. They've got no clue, no life experience, no understanding of how it's done. They've not earned the stripes. So no, my fear though is we've got to postpone this. We shouldn't continue with it because the result can't be trusted, and a blind man and a galloping horse can see that. I would say I think Humza will probably be declared the winner because they have to keep the bodies buried. They have to. Through cheating, it cannot be trusted. Humza will be a disaster. At least he's got form, you know, at least he's consistent. And we should start the investigations immediately, be that as a third party outside into the SNP, or we need to get the bottom of this, and we have to really rely on SNP insiders who have the courage that we saw from Lloyd Quinlan and Steve Norris to step up to the plate and get rid of this cancer within, because unless you get rid of it all, and I mean it all, you've got to get rid of that cancerous threat. And that doesn't mean, I would never use that analogy on people because it's a horrific one, but what I'm saying about the party is that if your intentions are not for the betterment of the people who live and work in Scotland, you've no place in this party. If you genuinely want that and you have made a mistake and you put your hands up and say, I'm back in, I want to fight for it, then people should be given a chance. I believe Ash will do that. I don't believe Humza would make one change other than he'll be doing more womanising.
Allegedly, Phil, for the lawyers.
Nah. That's Humza for you.
It's on that note, Yvonne, talking about how it's all gone wrong. It's been I found out today. Thank you, Stu Campbell, by the way, of Wings. The head of policy development for the Scottish National Party is a 20-something person who's been out of university for 4 years now, never worked anywhere but the Scottish Parliament for the SNP, now the head of policy development, and we wonder why no policies are coming through. It kind of sums up everything that's wrong.
Well, it does, and
I should say, I'm sure she's a nice wee lassie. I'm sure she's a lovely wee girl.
Well, if she's anything like that little madam who was standing next to Christine Graham, she'll be full of her own sense of hubris. I actually do feel sorry for these young ones with their heavy mortgages, because they must be bricking it at the moment, seeing everything implode, staring down at a P45 that's looming their way. Who, you know, if one of the women gets it, they're going to go through Holyrood with a broom. And so they should, and get rid of these nasty, self-entitled brats that surround Chief Mummy and tell her how wonderful she is. They've got to go. And I'm sure most of them will be trustafarians. They'll be able to rely on their parents to get them through difficult times. But I don't think the SNP realise just what the leadership has done. They have single-handedly destroyed their own leadership race. They have destroyed, they've kicked away all the democratic structures that were put in place. I was in a chat room the other last night, and somebody was likening it to Game of Thrones, and they were chomping away at their popcorn, saying that Alex Salmond will be jumping up and down with joy. I don't think he will. I think he'll be heartbroken. The SNP was his baby, and he handed it over to a female version of King Herod. You know, yeah. Really, Nicola has destroyed the baby. And when I first came onto Prism, I remember talking about legacy and what her legacy will be. Well, her legacy today is serial liar. That's her legacy. Destroyer of women's rights. And isn't it so ironic that the foundations started to crack because of a man called Isla Bryson, who politicians argued over, is this double rapist a man or a woman? And yeah. It is so ironic that it's a man that has brought down Nicola Sturgeon, and she still today probably won't admit that he is a man.
Well, I don't know if you saw that today. That
the First Minister is getting it in the neck at the moment because he was going to go down the same self-ID path as the SNP. And I'm so sad. I was watching the Welsh Parliament First Minister's questions today, and he is now realising that they're not going to go down this route, and they're having a pause for thought. And
yeah, but did
all people had to do was pause, listen to women like me, and pause. But my view wasn't valid.
No, but did you notice that someone's reported Humza to the police Scotland for misgendering Isla Bryson in the hustings? I thought, how ironic. The man that's going to take the section 35 on in the Supreme Court was reported by one of these. It shows you how quick these trad zealots can switch allegiances. Eva, as I've just alluded to, if Humza gets elected, he has said, as has Kate, which has really disappointed me, they're going to waste time, effort and money on challenging the Section 35. Now, I've said it on here a few times. I've written it a few times. There is not a chance in hell. Now, you're a legal eagle. There's not a chance in hell that the Supreme Court in London, England, who's already given 2 judgments giving Westminster sovereignty, are going to go against the sovereignty of the United Kingdom Parliament, Section 35. I think there is more chance of me becoming a season ticket holder at Parkhead next season.
Waste of time, money, credibility.
And that's the season ticket at Parkhead, I agree. Now, what about the Section 35?
I think Hamza knows perfectly well what the mood of the nation is. He really voiced that himself when he said that, in his opinion, Isla Bryce and Adam Graham was at it. So he shot himself in his own foot. He now is, I would say, personally barred from taking a legal challenge against the Section 35 because of that remark on its own, because it cuts right through the Scottish Government's principle of self-identification. That means that you identify yourself as trans. You're not up to be judged by other people, and he's just judged Isla Bryson. So actually, he's done us all a favour. But you see, don't mind me saying, Roddy, the reason why we're here, and the reason why some of us used to be in the SNP, and the reason why some of us have now gone to other parties, is because we prize independence. Our prize is freedom and what we can do with it when our country is free. And we know this from 2014, we need to have a plurality of strong independent supporting parties. And that is why it is so very tragic that the SNP is currently on the craw road and it's got to get back onto the right road. You know, we need to do a version of Better Together, if you like. The Tories and Labour knew what they were doing in the run-up to the 2014 referendum. We in the Scottish independence movement should be taking a leaf out of their book and being absolutely 100% laser focused on the prize. So when you've got a party that appears to be being less than honest, that appears to be setting people up, that appears to be taking their members as well as the electorate for a ride, that appears to be hemorrhaging support as the result of the GRR policy on its own, quite apart from anything else. This is damaging to the very fabric of Scottish society and the dream of Scottish independence. Because what we want to see is freedom, justice, social justice, equality, prosperity. Instead, we see that we're going to be getting imposed upon us another budget of austerity, where the Tories want us back at work when we're in our 50s or our 60s. So they're not going to just freeze us to death or starve us to death. They're going to work us to death. You know, Scottish independence is needed yesterday, and we can still have it this year if we've got a leader of the SNP who is prepared to cooperate and agitate and demonstrate, and yes, go along to All Under One Banner on the 6th of May and other similar events, and show the people of Scotland, Westminster, and the people of the world that the Scots mean business, and that the 19th of October 2023 is going to be our day where we will demand our independence. That is possible with the right attitude, the right leader, the right motivation, and, you know, ditch the nonsense of the last few years and the last few weeks and get the show on the road.
I agree. Well, it's you know, I mean, we're time's becoming an enemy, folks. So there's a few things I want to get through. Colette, Eva's touched on it, the budget yesterday. You know, this again is reinforcing why we need to get to hell out of the union. While France have tried to raise their pension age from 62 to 64, France is in fire as we sit and talk here today. The French are on the streets burning the place to the ground for a 62 to 64-year-old. The Tories are wanting to bring 62 and 64-year-olds back to work. And we're, match of the day. And we're sitting at home doing nothing. We should be rioting, that's one thing. But they're getting away with it. They're giving a big tax cut to the richest people in the UK are getting a tax cut, while the poorest are attending food banks. Really, it is that was a horrible budget, and yet the reaction to it was mute, to say the least.
I think because really quite a few of the things, such as the hours that we're going to be given to preschool, nursery, etc., they're not coming in for another 3 years. So why bother announcing it just now? You know, that's just an election a pre-election, oh look what we're going to give you if you keep us in power kind of thing. But you've got to look at overall what they're doing. It's not just the over 50s into 60s, possibly into 70s, wanting them to go back out to work. What work is it they're talking about them doing actually? What are they wanting them to go into the fields and pick the fruit and the vegetables that we're not getting? Is that actually what they're wanting them to do? But this goes further than this, Roddy. This goes on to people with disabilities as well. Now, for the people that have got a visual impairment, 75% of people with a visual impairment are unemployed, and that's only one sector of the disability community. 75% of visually impaired people are unemployed. So, and then they're cutting down the funding for access to work. So that makes it more impossible and harder. The barriers are going up all the time for people with disabilities to go to work. Transport's a nightmare. Cost of living's a nightmare. How do you get to your work if you can't get there because of the transport being so crap? But then it goes even further than that. Let's go to the root of it. People with disabilities, people with mental health issues that are at school. Our schools are falling to pieces. At the end of the day, they're setting them up to fail at the start. My son's 22 years old and I can't get him into further education because there's no proper teaching and further education that has specialised teachers that do Braille. In Scotland, I can't get my son into a further education course. Now, in 2023, that's abhorrent. They're setting up people with disabilities to fail from school. So if they don't come out with qualifications, confidence, independent living skills, how the heck are they expecting them to go out and actually earn a crust? So then they're classed as benefit scroungers. So, you know, this is a much wider thing than just getting, you know, people over 50, 60 into work. These are people that in society that take up a lot of society that are needing extra help. And then you're going on unpaid carers, people that are on universal credit or not getting anything at all because they're unpaid carers. We don't get mentioned. Unpaid carers are never mentioned. In Scotland alone, we've got nearly 850,000 unpaid carers, and there'll probably be more than that. 30,000 of them are young carers. That shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't have children going to school and not able to do their homework or their schoolwork because they're looking after family members in this society.
It's disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. And it has to be done. One thing, because the clock is always running ahead of us. Neil, Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, made a statement in the House of Commons, because they're always protected when they're in there. They can say what the hell they like. But she said she's spoken to every chief constable in England and Wales, and that they had told her that all the crime in England and Wales and all the drug dealing was caused by the people coming over the channel in small boats. Offensive doesn't come close to it, but it's also a lie. It was disgusting, was it not?
Oh yes, she is absolutely revolting. You know, she's testament to being racist is not conditional on the colour of your skin. Being racist is your inner sort of disposition towards people. Basically, it's something that you can't see from the outside looking in. No, she's as racist as the Ku Klux Klan are racist. And what we're seeing here is basically that the British state is a racist state. It's on the spectrum. The way Israel's a racist state, the British state is a racist state as well. It's different, very different, but it's similar. It's on the spectrum. And go bombing other countries with these colonialist, imperialist campaigns, and then people won't have to leave those countries because it's rubble and ruin. And where do they go? They'll go to places, try and get to places like the UK, funnily enough. So, yeah, I mean, if that is the case, what she's saying, then that just proves my point even further, because that shows that not only is the government, for the monarchy, which we know are racist, they've shown extreme Nazi behaviour and all sorts of disgusting behaviour along those lines, all the way down to police constables across England and Wales. If that is the case, then it just shows you the depth and scale of the problem. And Scotland is different. We certainly, I don't think we should be like, oh, right, everybody come here, you know, we've got room for everybody. No, we don't. You know, that's a fact. It's like any house or building or any open space, it's got a capacity. It's got a capacity where people can comfortably be together. You know, if you go into a pub, there's a capacity. You don't ram it full so that people can't move. There's a comfortable level. And a country's like that as well. But certainly we can take a lot of people and people that actually want to be Scottish, people that want to be a Scottish citizen and work for building this country up, and most importantly, setting this country free from the racist British state. So those are the kind of people that we welcome here in Scotland, and we'll welcome a lot of them with open arms, as we're known internationally as one of the most friendliest peoples in the world. But you compare and contrast that with this individual, Braverman, and the whole racist mob of them. They're disgusting, and it just shows you exactly a very key reason why we need to get away from these people. They are disgusting.
They are vile. Next week when we record our show, folks, we will maybe have a new leader of the SNP who will be the de facto leader of the Yes movement, or we will have a shambles. I don't know which way it's going to go, but we'll be there to report it and talk about it. And I hope today, can I just thank ladies and gentlemen for coming along here and sharing your thoughts and views. And can I remind you again, folks, the 6th of May, if you're available, down to good old Glasgow, Kelvin Grove Park, great, and down through the city. I've nearly got a tear coming down my eyes here thinking about it. Through George Square. Wonderful, down to the Glasgow Green. Can you whack it? There's a crack wee fish shop in the High Street as well. You can get a good, I did that last time, got a nice wee fish and chips, wee break. Anyway, till then, till we see you next week and we've got a new leader and more to talk about. You lot and your families, please take care.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.